Now that the Mass Effect trilogy is finished and the dust is mostly settled, here are my thoughts on the series. Spoiler warning. Now, Mass Effect the First came out with the promise of RPG shooter gameplay and a story that the player can change through dialogue trees over the course of not just this installment, but its planned sequels as well, using an import save game feature. Cool, we can't use half of that as of 2007, but we can at least play an RPG hybrid and explore a new universe filled with characters, history, worlds, and conflicts. The story, even though it's the introduction to the world and battle against the Reapers, is more climactic than the finale in the third game. If you recall, before Mass Effect 3, everyone believed the Reapers were infinite in power and almost invincible. The only idea you really had at the strength of the Reapers was gained from your conversation with Sovereign, in which he says things like, "Our numbers will darken the skies of all worlds," which of course gives them a status of an unstoppable force. At the end of this game, you're seconds away from that unstoppable and unbeatable force coming out of the Citadel mass relay and destroying the heart of galactic government and commerce before leaving and doing the same to everywhere else. Well, in Mass Effect 3, the Reaper is already there and the galaxy is actually doing pretty okay when you consider. There's also a personal conflict to be settled between you and Saren, which adds a meaningful boss fight to which the human Reaper larva cannot compare. Gameplay-wise, Mass Effect is a mixed bag. Everything works, but could work better. You get your classes for different playstyles, you have a large number of planets to explore, side quests are everywhere, you gain experience and level up your character, RPG stuff. The only problem there is that there wasn't much on those planets. They're all pretty much the same. Combat is fun and never gets boring, but sprinting is worthless, and the method of taking cover, while a lot better than pressing the A button to do everything, needed some work. There are hundreds of weapons, but they all felt the same. Also, commanding your squad was kind of pointless apart from using their powers. The dialogue wheel made the story much more engaging. Your character actually talking and the player making decisions usually does that. Though the choices you make don't really amount to much, it's still nice to be able to decide what mood Shepard is in. Mass Effect 2 was our first chance at seeing the save game importer in action, and it kind of disappointed. You get emails and cameos from the people that you decided not to kill off. Bigger decisions, like saving the Council, didn't do much at all. Oh well, we all said. Let's see what happens in the next one. Its story was more focused on the characters in your squad, as opposed to showing off the universe and whatnot. The effort paid off. All 12 characters were interesting and memorable, which made the suicide mission at the end all the more intense because they could be dying left and right. If you hadn't repaired enough throughout the game or led the team wrong, there were casualties. Legion ended up dead in my first run through and it stung because I knew it was my fault. While its predecessor was the most climactic, this story was the most entertaining, if that makes sense. Gameplay-wise, they changed a lot, for good and for seemingly no reason. Shooting is better, now up to par with other shooters. Powers are a bit weaker, but can be used a lot more, thus making them more effective. Taking cover is done by pressing the A button, which works better than the alternative, but I was still a bit disappointed that they didn't try again with the just run up to it system. Oh well, for the best I guess. All that RPG nonsense was taken out. Who needs an inventory? Who needs armor, weapon mods, or meaningful character progression? Did you like that giant tank that explored planets freely, had immense firepower, ability to drive near vertical surfaces, and hop in the air a little? No one wants that. We don't need shooter gameplay broken up by all that boring stuff. Now people can shoot things over and over and over and over and over again. All that time players spent exploring planets and driving around or making decisions about character leveling can now be spent shooting things. That way, they never get bored. They're always in the action. That seemed to be the design philosophy at BioWare at the time. Luckily, they put in a few non-shooting related things so that it wasn't too repetitive. Planet probing may not be the greatest, but at least it's there. The greatness of its story tends to make all its faults forgivable. That's all I really have to say about Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 3. Where to start with this one? I hate to say it, but it was immensely disappointing. Being a fan since the beginning, buying all the books and spin-off games, it was really shocking what they did. While now there is more player progression, shops, items, and a conclusion that I thought was at the very least good enough, it was boring. Exploring the galaxy was one of the biggest points of Mass Effect, and they pretty much took it out. Why? That was dumb. If Mass Effect 2 was a shooter more than an RPG, then this is a linear third-person cover-based shooter just like Gears of War. The combat is perfected, but I guess it better be when that's all you're going to do. There was a similar problem with Final Fantasy XIII. It was just combat and cutscenes. The other entries in the series had more than just that. Why doesn't this? Doing the same thing over and over again gets boring. It's not complicated. And just to add to my disappointment, all those decisions you made throughout the trilogy don't matter. One thing changes. Keep Malin's data and Eve lives, which was cool. Why didn't they do more of that? Like in Mass Effect 2, you get emails and cameos. Don't kill Mordin, Solarians help you anyway. Legion didn't make it? Well, here's a holograph of Legion. The story is still good though, even if the Reaper problem was solved by a magical superweapon that we conveniently just discover as the Reapers invade. The scene where, if you kill Mordin, was pretty difficult to watch. Great moments like that make the story as good as the others. Oh, and there is online co-op multiplayer in this one, where it's Horde mode with some differences. Dear BioWare, if I wanted to play Gears of War, I would play Gears of War. However, I am impressed with BioWare's support for the community. Free multiplayer expansions and bi-weekly community challenges are pretty cool. I can't stay mad at them for too long. And that's the Mass Effect trilogy. It was fun while it lasted. It's just such an interesting sci-fi world full of mystery, just wanting to be uncovered and explored. Despite the last game falling short, it's probably the best thing to come out of this generation. Which is kinda sad when you think about it. That's another topic. This has been Andar talking about Mass Effect. I hope the experience wasn't too unenjoyable for you.